This is a quick video I've put together to say a few words about my book Trying Neaira, the true story of a courtesan's scandalous life in ancient Greece, which was published in 2003 by Yale University Press. In the book, I tell the story of a woman named Neaira who was brought to trial in Athens in the 4th century BC. She was a prostitute. She'd grown up in a brothel in Corinth, been sold off to serve as the sex slave of a pair of friends, and eventually she'd managed to buy her freedom from them. After some other unpleasantness, she wound up living with a man named Stephanus in Athens. Stephanus was an Athenian citizen, Neaira was not an Athenian citizen, and that was a large part of the problem. Stephanus involved himself in Athenian politics, and he had an enemy named Apollodorus, who was a very litigious fellow. After a series of attacks and lawsuits back and forth, Apollodorus decided to get at Stephanus by prosecuting Stephanus's, significant other. It wouldn't be quite right to call Neaira Stephanus's wife. That, too, was a large part of the problem. Neaira, even in her day, was rather famous for being a prostitute. Everybody knew she had been a prostitute before settling down with Stephanus, though it wasn't quite clear what she got up to after settling down with him. But her prostitution wasn't the issue. It wasn't illegal. Apollodorus brought Neaira to court on an unrelated charge, that she was living with Stephanus as his wife rather than his concubine. If she was doing this, it would have been wrong, because at that point in Athens history, it was against the law for citizens to marry non-citizens. And it all gets rather technical, the proofs, the alleged proofs, of whether or not she and Stephanus were trying to put one over on the Athenian citizenry by trying to be husband and wife. Now, we actually have the text of the speech that Apollodorus delivered in court during the trial against Neaira. It may not be word for word what he said in court, but it's pretty close, and it's a very interesting historical document, because it tells us a great deal about a lot of things: Athenian religious practices, the ancient sex trade, the judicial torture of slaves, homicide law, enfranchisement procedures, and so on. And in making his case against Neaira, Apollodorus finds it necessary, happily enough, to drag up all sorts of interesting information about her life as a prostitute. Not that her prostitution had anything to do, really, with whether or not she was married to Stephanus, but that wasn't really the point. Apollodorus wanted to prejudice the jurors against Neaira. He wanted to embarrass and harass Stephanus, and he wasn't bound to stick to the facts of the case, given the peculiarities of Athenian trials. That, in short, is what my book is about. I wrote Trying Neaira for the educated general reader, which is to say that I don't assume that readers know anything whatever about Greek history prior to reading the book. I tell the story of Neaira, and I use her story as a prism through which to view Athenian society. I write about the sex trade and about Athenian legal procedures, which are actually quite fascinating. I write about radishes, too, big, long, carrot-like radishes, in one of my favorite parts of the book, which has to do with what a husband was entitled to do to a man should he find that man in bed with his wife. If you read the reviews below carefully, you'll see precisely what I'm talking about. Thanks for your time.